Thank you all. Our next round of questioning will begin with Ms. Sadler. Do you believe that insurance and other propaganda is affecting jury verdicts in Allegheny County? If your answer is in the negative, why not? And if so, do you have any ideas as to how to counteract it during the jury instruction phase of a civil trial? Would you be willing to entertain a point for jury charge to counteract it? If not, why not?
Okay, you said insurance and other, what was the second word?
Propaganda is affecting jury verdicts in Allegheny County.
Okay. I don't, as I said, the extent of my practice is criminal defense. I don't, you can't even really so much as mention insurance in a lot of these cases, relating in the civil division. So I don't know that it's necessarily a problem. How to counteract in a jury trial, I think that any jury instruction that is warranted, that would be curative, would be appropriate. Mr. Schubert?
Yes.
There is a definite effect. When I was president of the trial lawyers, we did a study. This began in the late 1980s with the propaganda insurance companies were putting out, and it has affected the verdicts in Allegheny County. Do I think the jury instruction is sufficient? No. It's you have to do it in voir dire, where you question the jurors. We have to have open voir dire where we can ask the jurors if they have seen any of this garbage and if they believe it. And I think it permeates our system the way that has been out there for over 20 years.
And I would concur with Mr. Schubert. I think that during voir dire, you can find out if there's any prejudice on behalf of any potential jurors, if they've been affected by this issue, and if that's the case, then they should be excluded from the jury pool. As far as any charge to the jury, obviously, as a judge, you would charge them accordingly and then ask them to discount anything that is not related to the facts presented during the trial when they're deliberating for making their decision. Thank you.
I'm absolutely in no position to judge what effect insurance companies or propaganda has had on these civil cases. My practice has been exclusively in the criminal division for the last 20 years. The closest thing we have to it is we see jurors with expectations that are so high because of television shows like CSI and these true crime dramas. And we do take steps when we're picking juries to address these issues with jurors who have these unreasonable expectations. But as far as the effect of the civil division, it's simply out of my area of expertise.
Ms. Bush?
I will echo that, although from a different area. I don't have an opinion on the effect on jury verdicts in the civil division. I will say that the suggestions that have been made by my colleagues about examining jurors before they're placed on the jury sound very useful.
I would, my understanding, and perhaps members of the Defense Bar, Richard and Barbara could answer this. I've had a lot of discussion. I mean, my understanding is that they feel that not the propaganda in the insurance industry, for example, the Edgar Schneider commercials and things like that, have done much to negatively affect the jury's opinions on those types of cases. Again, that's my understanding. I haven't done the study myself, but that's one way. As far as the voir dire, in those cases, those are types of cases that I tried. I interviewed countless juries on that, and they are vetted. I mean, you're asked to determine, do you have an opinion on civil damage lawsuits? What is that opinion? What have you heard? And they are vetted in that sense. So I think as far as the jury's going to have an idea of what they're thinking when you're selecting them.
I definitely think it's had an effect. I think there are two effects. I think one is that in so many areas of plaintiff's personal injury, you can no longer put medical bills before a jury. So all you can do is talk about pain and suffering, and it's so nebulous that, how do you define that? don't have any hard numbers to work off of. So I think that's the legal end of it. I do think the sort of campaign or propaganda, as Rich said, did begin in the 80s, when you started seeing billboards saying, insurance fraud is a crime. And doctors talking about how, because of their malpractice rates, they're all fleeing the state. So I think there was a concerted effort to make jurors skeptical. And I think we have hurt ourselves through legal advertising to some degree, because now it portrays to the public that if you bring a personal injury suit, you're playing the lottery. You're not paying any fees, you have no skin in the game, so you're just taking a chance. And I think that has come back to not to benefit us, because it's made jurors skeptical, and it's made them not want to be sympathetic or empathetic to the client.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely affected civil verdicts in Allegheny County. I think most civil division judges will tell you that. The problem is really that it's been so pervasive for so long that, we have to almost accept that as a given, that your jury pool may somehow be prejudiced, and you have to deal with that in jury selection. I don't know that an instruction would necessarily be appropriate unless it was alleged that a juror made an inappropriate comment, or if an inappropriate question leaning toward that way was directed to the court. I think then you'd have to give a curative instruction. But the time to deal with that issue and try to head it off is during the jury selection process.
The jury selection process in this county is very weak. You don't get to actually do the kind of voir dire that is permitted in many other states. Therefore, you don't get to ask the questions that you can really pull forward. There are people actually on jury pools now come in with an agenda which they conceal and will not openly reveal to you. And you only find it out, accidentally or not at all. And so they come in with the thought process of this person who's filed suit should not be here and isn't entitled to an award without hearing anything. And all of this has been created by decades of advertising and millions of dollars put into the advertising. It's all that we found that was very specific. The cases that we tried against for life insurance fraud haven't been advertised against. So the juries didn't have the same agenda that they would have had in an automobile case. I found that out because you're allowed to talk to jurors after they come to their decisions, and I would start finding out what they were doing. But it's really an outrage what has happened, and it has affected everything that can go on for people who suffer any kind of an injury. It's almost like we returned to the days of when if you're an injured person, there was an old-fashioned biblical concept, if you were ill or sick or injured, that you were evil or something. That concept has almost come about now. It's become very hard to communicate the sufferings and the problems of people who have suffered injury. So, I don't know, the civil division really has a problem to deal with. I don't think we deal with it adequately in this county at all. Right.
I've been practicing law for 35 years, and I'm certain that the impact of propaganda saying that insurance fraud, seeing it over on the screen, has had a huge effect. When I started practicing, I didn't have to go to a jury. I got settlements with the claims adjusters. Now they don't want to settle. It seems like everything, a lot of things are going to juries. But more important, it's not only the propaganda, it's the legislature by passing the limited tort. Because 90% of the people who come to me have limited tort, and under that statute, you have to show severe injury to get pain and suffering, which destroys most of your cases. Now, as a judge, I think I agree with Mr. Schubert. I think a voir dire would be the best way to try to solve it. Now, if the attorneys have an instruction they want to propose to me, I'll look at it and see if it would help. And I don't know if there's any would help, but I think I agree with Ms. Ernsberger that the system for injured people is very poor in this county, in the state too, I think.
I don't know much about propaganda, but I do know this much. Recently, we had a $109 million verdict in this county. And so I don't know how propaganda affected that. But, and I can tell you also, in West Virginia where I practice, there are a number of large jury verdicts there. So maybe our propaganda in this state is different than the propaganda in other states. I don't know. I'm no expert on propaganda. I haven't done any studies on it. I do know this much. I have written jury instructions when I worked for Judge McCune, and I've tried cases where the following jury instructions have been given, and that is jurors are to bring with them their common sense, and they're to follow the evidence that's been presented in the trial. So, you know, in the voir dire, and I've been called as a juror as well, and I know that the voir dire tries to ferret out from your obligation as a juror any prejudices from insurance companies and the like. So what effect propaganda has, I don't know, but I can tell you that jurors should be and are instructed to bring with them their common sense and to follow the evidence that's been presented. Maybe there's a problem with how the evidence is presented sometimes, as opposed to what the propaganda effect is.